You're tuned in to Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast, a forum where we discuss and explore society-based topics while advocating and providing information and resources to the community through an unscripted, unfiltered, and authentic approach. Listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. Watch us on YouTube. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast, your society-based channel. Welcome to another episode of Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. I'm your host, and my name is Danette Mahabeer-Turner. And today we have an amazing episode lined up for you as usual, but we want to take the time out to highlight our sponsors of this amazing episode. Our title sponsor, Evergreen's Plant Shop, Coffee House, and Wine Bar, located at 4677 Alben Barclay Drive, Paducah, Kentucky. Evergreens strive to provide an experience as well as a great cup of coffee. So stop in to experience Evergreens today. Our title sponsor, Jenny Hines for McCracken County District Judge 2024. Don't just vote straight ticket this November. Remember to cast your vote for this nonpartisan race. And today, season 3, episode 7, our topic for today's adoption versus foster care. Our special guest is none other than Christina Mangrum. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so on this episode, we will explore the differences, similarities, and your personal journey with the foster care system today. So before we get into the hot seat, because I know it's a lot to digest today, Evergreens, as our title sponsor, always does an amazing job to make sure that my guests and myself are well taken care of with 2 amazing featured drinks. So today you are having the banana matcha. So I want you to take a sip, and for those who are listening or watching, to give them a brief description of what you think about this drink.
All right. So I've never had matcha before. This is my first take on it, and this one specifically tastes like banana pudding.
Ooh, I love some banana pudding.
Yeah, it tastes like foamy banana pudding. It's literally banana pudding in a beverage.
Oh,
that's the best way I can describe it.
I love that. Well, thanks to Jean for my amazing drink. I'm having the banana caramel latte. I am a latte person, so I don't think I could go wrong, with any type of latte. Hot latte, of course. Oh, and this actually, my drink, if you look, has real bananas in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks to Evergreens once again for these amazing featured drinks. All right, Christina, do you mind sharing your background with my audience?
Yeah, so I come from a family of 6. I have 5 siblings. I was raised by my great aunt and uncle. More the darker part of my background is I came from an abusive household, and I lived in that household for a pretty significant amount of years until I was put in the foster care agency system.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And what age were you?
I was
How old were you?
about to be 17. I was about to be 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How has your experience shaped your views on family and parenting?
Well, to be completely honest, I struggle with finding anyone as a mother figure. Like, I've had a lot of strong women in my life that have tried to come in and take over that mother role, not forcibly, but try to give me that love and care. And I kind of
rejected it.
Yeah, I'm not in the position to where I can say,
Accept it.
No, I can't accept that kind of love from another woman.
Oh, wow. And I'm going to ask you some deep questions. So thank you so very much for even allowing me to interview you so you can open up. I think it's necessary, for listeners and viewers to understand the impacts that, this has on people like yourself in our society.
Yeah.
Have you ever seek therapy?
Yeah, I am actually currently in therapy. I'm going to be going into a more intensive PTSD regimen in my therapy. I've currently been diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety disorder. So
I can just imagine. Can you share a memorable moment or story from your experience in the foster care system?
One of the best memories I have was we went to Holiday World. Like in the foster care system, they take you to trips every now and then. And me and my sister, we were at Holiday World with one of the foster parents' grandchildren. And I remember us on the Raven. I don't know if you've been to Holiday World, but it's the ride. It's kind of like it's fully wooden, and it's very rickety. It hurts to ride, but we had a whole blast on that ride, and we rode it like I think 3 times in a row. And that was definitely one of my favorite
memorable moments. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. What are some pros and cons of being in the foster care system?
Pros, financially, they do help a lot with finances. Once you age out of care, they will provide you with housing. They provide you with a really decent amount of money every year and also monthly. They give you a whole bunch of, if you know where to look, you can get a whole bunch of resources that can help you really thrive. Cons is the mental weight, and you kind of have to live with and deal with that for a really long time. You have to be kind of in the right place at the right time. Some people have good experiences in foster care. Unfortunately, I did not. So there's a lot of mental baggage and stuff that comes along with having experienced foster care.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So you mentioned, of course, you can only speak for yourself, but you mentioned that some people, have a better experience than you did. Do you believe that if you had had a better experience, you would not have that emotional trauma that you're experiencing now, or that you're going through therapy for right now?
Well, a lot of my emotional trauma came from before foster care. Foster care kind of just added another load onto it. It may have helped heal me easier, better. Being in foster care, I was able to kind of deal with my trauma outside of living in it. But it also added another level of trauma. So, I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can just imagine. In your opinion and personal experience, can you share what you believe are the differences between foster care and adoption? I know you were in the foster care system, but just from your personal opinion and experiences that.
Well, having been in the foster care system, there's this thing called respite where you can stay with someone who isn't your foster family when your foster family is out of town. And so I had been placed on respite with this family that had already had 2 adopted girls. And from what I had seen, they were adopted from what is past like the age where most people will get adopted in foster care. And they were very happy with the lady they were with. The way the system worked is the court, it was easier for them to get adopted because of the situations with them and their family. So I think adoption is a really, really good thing if you find that right family. And it's definitely a stark contrast into the foster care system because you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be moving to another home. There is the fact they can't put you back in the system. But
even after being adopted.
They can. I think there's a leeway period where they can just like either cut it off or they have a period where they could just send you back in. But it is more stability and it is definitely more care and attentive into it.
Wow. I'm learning a lot here today as well. With you being in foster care, you mentioned that you had that interim family when your foster care family was out of town. Separate and apart from that, did you have to move around to various families?
Yes, I had been in 3 different foster homes, and they were all very short. My first home I was in for a month. The second home I was in for a month and a half, and my final home I was in for about a year and a half.
So. How did that make you feel after leaving? Like the first, you were fostered for a month, and then you had to root everything up. And how did that make you feel moving into the second foster home?
It was very hard. Going into the first one was hard because suddenly I was uprooted from my home and just put in a car with a random lady, told to go somewhere. And eventually she said, here we are in Hickman, a city you've never been to that you've never heard of.
What are some of the most challenging moments that you've faced while you were in the foster care system?
Moving around. It was hard because, you didn't know where you were going, who you were going with, what you were going to expect to live in, and the environments were completely different than what you had been raised in or what you had been taught in. My first home, they were basically kind of like hippies in a sense. And it was a stark contrast from where I came from, because I came from a impoverished country home. And so you just suddenly are in this house with these people who don't let you eat bread or chips.
Oh, wow.
And then second home, I was in with Puerto Ricans. So another completely different cultural aspect. Yeah.
Wow.
And there was also the fact of when they would let you go. Like my first home, they let us go because they found out my sister was gay. And so they made us leave. And in the second home, they had a lot of bad things they had done to foster youth. I don't know if you want me to go into details about it, but
feel free to share whatever you're comfortable sharing.
They harbored illicit photos of foster youth. They gave drugs to my sister, a whole bunch of stuff. And so we had to leave. And they were actually going to try and separate me and my sister because they were mad at us for something. So they tried to make a false accusation on me to separate me from my sister. But luckily we stayed together until I had aged out. And that's when I went to the third home, which was 2 hours away from what I know is home. And I'd never heard of this city either. And with these people that I didn't really understand, but it was close to the dynamic I lived in because they were Black parents. But just kind of trying to adjust to their culture, and then also having to adjust to being kicked out for reasons that you can't control. And it kind of weighs on your head. You're just like, am I wanted?
Not sure what did I
do?
Yeah.
A lot of the times I struggle with, I'm the victim. Like I struggle with that because they made me feel like I was the problem instead of the victim.
Wow. Wow. This is definitely a tough topic to digest if you're listening or watching. And I would advise that you do get educated on our foster care and adoption system. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing as much as you have. We really appreciate that. Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast is a society-based platform. And that's why, I'm okay with you sharing as much as you want or as little as you want. More the better, because that's how we're going to get educated on the topic. How did your experiences in foster care shape your identity and worldviews?
Well, before I'd even gotten into foster care, I had heard about it. Like you would see the foster care signs around the town, and I was just like, oh, it's like those cartoons where they're a happy family, blah blah blah. It was completely different than what I expected. So I have more of a heart for it, and I feel more of a need to help where I can. And that's kind of how it shaped me into more of a helper rather than a watcher, and actually wanting to get actively involved, actually wanting to actively know what is going on and what I can do to help.
Wow. What do you think are the strengths and weaknesses of our foster care system?
Strengths are they are providing housing. That's at least to an extent. Weaknesses, they let a lot of rotten people get in, whether it be a foster parent or a case manager or a social worker. Which is not their fault. You can't really judge someone's character. It's really difficult to know the root of a person. But there are a lot of people who come into foster care, work in foster care for either the money or just because they like to have power over someone that can't do anything. And so I think that's a really, really big weakness that needs to be addressed in some way, shape, or form.
Wow. If you could change one thing about the foster care system, I know you just mentioned like their weaknesses. I'm, sure if there's anything in addition to this, what would you change about the system? What would that be?
Well, I actually have an idea of what I want to do to improve the system to kind of get past that barrier we have with rotten eggs being in the system. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's still in the works, but I think that we can find a way to make the foster youth and the foster parents both comfortable and actually make loving families together.
Wow. And here's my final question for you, Christina. How can individuals support foster children and families in their community? You're someone that's been through this system. So I want you to educate our audience today. I
think searching out for awareness, understanding how the system works and the actual, both the dark and the good parts of it. And advocating, giving a voice, giving the youth an ability to use their voice. Because a lot of the time in the foster system, they kind of just tell you to shut up and be quiet. Like you can't say anything. And if you do, you will probably be punished. Like I had tried to speak out a lot about the way I was being treated, and I got reprimanded multiple times, threatened with my sister being separated from me. So having adults that the youth can actually trust and talk to and actually will actually help them, not say, oh, I'm going to help you, and then they go and tell the person who's doing this to you what happened and they don't actually help you. So actually giving a helping hand and a loving heart to the youth that are struggling in foster care, because they are the victims.
Right. Absolutely.
They're the only ones who are involved in it that don't have a say.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and for opening up as much as you did. We want to take the time out once again to highlight our sponsors of episode 7. Our title sponsors, Evergreen's Plant Shop, Coffee House, and Wine Bar, located at 4677 Alvin Barclay Drive, Paducah, Kentucky. Evergreen's strive to provide an experience as well as a great cup of coffee, so check them out today. Our season sponsor is Jenny Hines for McCracken County District Judge 2024. Don't just vote straight ticket this November. Remember to cast your vote for this nonpartisan race. I have been your host. My name is Danette Mahabeer-Turner. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Remember, you can join our Facebook group, Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. We also have a YouTube channel that you can watch on. You can listen on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and definitely follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll see you on the next episode. God bless you.